And welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Professor Maksym Yali. Maksym, it's a pleasure to have you on again.
Nice to meet you once again too, Errol.
Thank you. I want to go straight into these questions. The last conversation we had, we spoke about the Republicans gaining power in midterm election, and apparently they clinched the House for control. Now, we already heard Marjorie Taylor Greene indicating that they think it's time to cut support to Ukraine. Should this happen, what impact would this have on Ukraine?
Well, you know, it's a nightmare for Ukraine, for Ukrainian people, because everybody knows that the biggest part, most of military and financial support we are so urgently need now, and every day, unfortunately, more and more taken into account the damages Russian missiles make to Ukrainian economy, infrastructure. Now, just, for example, find a friend who has electricity, because, for example, a day before yesterday, only a few hours, we had electricity during the day and night, just a few hours. And of course, it's difficult. And of course, we need the support to buy not only missiles, but also equipment to restore our energy system. But as for military effects, I would say, of course, we wouldn't have achieved later successes, victories, including the occupation of the only administrative regional center, Kherson. You know, Russians withdrew their troops from there, though they were preparing for defense for several months. Before that, we had great successes in Kharkiv. All that would be impossible with U.S. support, especially HIMARS systems, MLRS, and artillery system, because, for example, just in spring, after we won the battle for Kiev, which also would be impossible without military equipment of the United States and support, the situation was dramatic, I would say. And then our Western allies, first of all, United States, who has great influence also on European allies, who were hesitating, to put it mildly, giving us support. They reassured it, as well as Ukrainian authorities, President Zelensky. And since then, after summer, in autumn, we are having counteroffensive, very good successes. So definitely, if this support will be cut off, of course, we shall not have other successes. Because, for example, until now, since the 24th of February, we managed to deoccupy only 52% of Ukrainian territories. So there is still a lot of things to do, and to deoccupy all Ukrainian territories, including my native city, Mariupol, and Crimea, which was occupied in 2014, which will be also very difficult, especially without military support. So definitely, if this nightmare happens, but I believe not, because, as we know, Democrats managed to keep control under the Senate. It's very important. Probably they will, in December the 6th, even win one more place, and even better its situation in comparison with 2 years before. But still, the most important, they keep the Senate. But in the House of Representatives, as we know, Republicans gain control. Actually, expectedly, usually I looked to the history of the elections in the United States. It was only one or two times since the end of Second World War when the president kept control under the both houses, I would say. So last time it was in 2006, no, 2002, but it was after the 11th of September terrorist attack, and then American people united and supported Republicans. And first of all, President Bush. Since then, any president, and before that actually, any president, any party, leading party was losing control. That's I would say, specialities of check and balance systems. But what we see now, coming back to your questions, after this week, just a few days ago, one of the first, I would say, not laws, but propositions, I would say. It was propositions of some Republicans to check up the assistance Ukrainian government has already given to Ukraine. And they blame that there is a corruption among Democrats, etc., etc. Usual talks we had during last at least half a year. I mean, you had, yes, and we were analyzing, me particularly. So these Trumpists, luckily, didn't win. As majority, well, I can't. MGT, I would say, to be short, her name, this congresswoman who stated that not a penny should be given to Ukraine just before midterms. Yes, she is still in Congress, and she was also, she still makes such statements. Of course, we perceive it negatively. But luckily, as I have mentioned, not all Republicans also have such views. And as you know,
Absolutely.
Since 2014, we've been having bipartisan support in Congress, and I hope we shall still have it. And luckily, that supporters of and representatives, I would say, not as many as could have been now in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. So we still keep our fingers crossed, and the most important, that President Biden stated that he will keep giving us support. We know that there is still another option, Plan B, so to say.
Well, I believe...
He has even...
Sorry. Well, I believe
Yeah.
that NATO alliance and United States of America have a moral and economic obligation to uphold the democracy as NATO alliance remain the leaders of the free world. It's imperative that they win this war. As strange as it may seem, we have China looking seriously at Taiwan. They're monitoring how the NATO nations will operate, and the United States of America. And we still have North Korea doing their things. The reality is that if America fails to go through and represent Ukraine in this time, very importantly that they do, because Russia can't get the victory. Should Russia get the victory, I will guarantee you that Putin will believe that he is the ruler of the free world, and he will come after other NATO alliance and those nations within the parameters of Ukraine. So I think for that reason it's imperative, despite of what Marjorie Taylor Greene may say, she is whack anyway. I believe that the Senate would maintain its obligation and integrity in assisting Ukraine. It's a war that was unprovocative. Putin did what he do, but it's not reality. But my prime concern is the intensity of Putin attacks still remains the same, or is he running down on artillery and manpower?
Well, of course, I just read yesterday and listened to military experts who asked the same questions. So the crucial situation, the worst I would say, since the 24th of February was in Donbass, where they used artillery systems and have advantage 10 times, somewhere in 20 times in artillery systems and shells. And that's why, as I have mentioned in spring, we had a difficult situation and they managed to occupy some new territories. But still, 45% of the Donetsk region is controlled by Ukraine. We occupied in some part of Lugansk regions. These two regions in combined, I would say, it is called Donbass, yes, Donbass region. So, no, they also have lack of shells and artillery. As you know, they even ask American intelligence say that they ask for North Korea to sell them shells and artillery systems. So they have also these problems, and now the fire is not so intensive, I would say, as it used to be in spring. But still, as you know, after they withdrew their troops from Kherson region, from the right bank of Dnipro, now they can throw these troops and weapons to Donbass, and they are doing it already. Moreover, they are preparing, as you know, they mobilized 300,000 new soldiers, new people in Russia. About 80,000 of them, they are already in Ukraine. Thousands of them already killed, but still. They have these problems. What we're afraid of and what are the risks? Cooperation with Iran. As you know, they are given drones which attack our crucial infrastructure. But now American intelligence, CIA, claim for several months already, especially during last month, that there is an agreement that Iran will sell to Russia ballistic missiles for 300 kilometers and even 700 kilometers. That's the biggest threat. Now Russians and Putin have already understood, and if we watch to the battlefield, that they cannot win us on the battlefield. And situation during last few months proves it. And I told you already, just we occupied a lot of territories since the beginning of September. In summer, there was operative force. We were preparing, preparing our strategic plans of counteroffensive. We were receiving military aid, weapons. So we were preparing, and then we used to it. So, and Russians have serious casualties also, not only in soldiers, almost 80,000 already. But also in tanks, vehicles, and all artillery, all kinds of. So therefore, they are asking for North Korea, Iran to sell them weapons. So this is the risk, and we're hoping now that President Biden, his administration, will help to curb these risks. And also to impose possibly new sanctions on Iran, or at least to have negotiations. As you know, nuclear treaty failed. There were negotiations for since President Biden came to power, but unfortunately they failed, and now Iran became an openly an ally of Russians, and he is selling them weapons. So, this war is absolutely different. It differs from Second World War, and because Russians were just waging this war on how they used to do it during Second World War. So they are throwing thousands of people unprepared, absolutely, which are killed. So now it's weapons absolutely different. We have drones, intelligence, and we have support, and precise weapons, HIMARS, as I have mentioned, in comparison with the Soviet systems, absolutely different results. And it helps us till now, and it helped us to reach these results. But the problem is that for Putin, it's an eco-nothing state. He cannot lose this war, because otherwise he will lose power, probably life as well, as Gaddafi, for example, did, as Saddam Hussein and all other dictators.
One thing no one seems to understand, if Ukraine want to end this war now, they can, providing that they have access to long-range missiles that you can hit deep in the belly of Russia and dismantle some of their sites and so forth. What do you think U.S. and its allies are so reluctant in giving long-range missiles that you can actually end this war?
Good questions. Of course, we are asking, and we are ready to give our authorities, generals are ready to give guarantees that we shall not use it on the Russian territory, because President Biden has stated already, and many other officials, they are afraid that it will lead to escalation of the conflict. Then Russians, they are threatening that in this case they will consider NATO and the United States, of course, as the participant of this war. And then, as you know, the propagandists and even officials, deputies, MPs, etc., are threatening to use nuclear weapons. And unfortunately, Western politicians are afraid of it, not only American, but European as well. But of course, it would help us a lot to finish this war much quicker and with less casualties. As you know, we used already even Ukrainian weapons, due to official information, in Crimea and on the airport, and it was great effect. And ex-president of Russia, Medvedev, who is now deputy head of National Security Council, before just even the beginning of the war and in spring, was threatening, if we attack Crimea, then it will be nuclear apocalypse, and they will use nuclear weapons. But nothing happened.
Right.
So we already have proofs. But that's why this question we are asking, and you know, Ukrainian people are asking, okay, you see, we already practice this. Okay, we're not going to occupy Russian territories. We just want to deoccupy our territories and win this war, and we want the aggressor to withdraw their troops. And of course, we need long-range missiles for that to eliminate logistic supplies, etc., etc. But on Ukrainian territory.
Well, I agree absolutely. And tactically speaking, I don't think Putin is a crazy person, and I don't think he would resort to nuclear war or get nuclear ambitious in mind, because other nations have nuclear weapons too. He don't want Russia to get wiped out, so why would he try to wipe out someone else? This is Ukraine trying to protect itself and disarm Russia from coming after them. And long-term missiles is the way to go. Could Zelensky say to President Biden, well, listen, Putin is just bluffing. He's not going to use nuclear weapons. he has a country that he has to protect also. Because the same way he can use it, the next country can use it against him. So he's not going to go that route unless he wants to see the world end. So just give the long-range missiles that this war can be over and done with, because I think the longer it drags on, it's going to put Ukrainians and Russians too in a bad place where the winter is going to start to take its toll. You're getting your electrical sites blast, and Ukrainians are lacking power and they need heat as winter come upon us. So therefore, I only think it's wise that United States and its allied forces come to recognize that the best way to do this is to give long-range missiles. They're thinking that this will start Armageddon or World War III, but I don't think so. That's my opinion. What's yours?
I absolutely agree with you. As I have already mentioned and gave you results, when we attacked Crimea, which due to international law is Ukrainian territory, but Russia annexed it in 2014. And they were also threatening before officials, his, I would say, right hand of Putin, ex-president Medvedev, who was also prime minister, just in last year, he was substituted. For all that years, for 20 years, he is number two, I would say, person. He was either prime minister or even president. So he was threatening to use nuclear weapons, but they didn't. So it proves that they were bluffing. Unfortunately, what a lot of politicians in the United States and European Union do not understand that bluffing is the main policy of Putin. It is about mentality, where he was brought up in the suburbs of the St. Petersburg in that times, where there were a lot of bandits, and he was a small boy. He was beaten. It's about psychology already. But what is more important, his bluffing was successful for many years. Mm-hmm. And since 2014, when he occupied Crimea, and since he began aggression in Donbass in 2014, more than 13,000 people were killed, mostly in Ukraine, particularly during 2014-2015. He was bluffing, and everybody knew it was Russia. Everybody knew it was Russian troops. But everybody pretended that it was a civil conflict in Ukraine, which was absolutely wrong. European allies pressed on us to sign these Minsk agreements, due to which it was a civil conflict, though there were plenty of troops, or not only of weapons, but of soldiers in Ukraine. We captured them. They were given they were stating that they were Russian soldiers in 2014, but everybody preferred to close the eyes. For example, President Obama forbade to give us any weapons after occupation of Crimea, when there was already bloodshed in Donbass. And sanctions were not serious. And therefore, Putin thought, okay, I can do what I want. They will will not react. Bluffing is enough. And unfortunately, for many years, it was like this, because I want to underline once again, this war started in 2014. And about 14,000 people, Ukrainians, were killed since then. And it didn't stop. And therefore, he thought, okay, there will be no reactions, there will be no military assistance. And therefore, he started full-scale war and invasion. Luckily, now it's President Biden who knows him very well. and also not as quick as possible, started giving us artillery and more important HIMARS, MLRS, which showed with the help of Ukrainian soldiers such a effectiveness. Everybody knows and everybody says, wow, it's very cool. Everybody thought it was the second army in the world, Russian. Now we see they're withdrawing. They are killed every day, thousands, just hundreds, sometimes thousands already, 800,000 people. And we see now how they withdraw. They managed to occupy a lot of territories in the south during the first days. Now that's what we're doing. And they came up in the north, which were already deoccupied. But still, what we see from the point of view of military analytics, they already lost. They already lost this war. But the problem is that Putin understands that if he says, okay, it was my mistake, it was not special operation, military, we didn't reach our goals, we didn't occupy Ukraine, sorry, it will be the end of his power.
Yes.
And probably now there are a lot of such news in American media, Washington Post, New York Times lately. Even General Milley said, okay, we need to use this window of opportunities, meaning winter, when there probably will be operative force, because, for example, now it's snow already. Winter has come to Ukraine for negotiations. So they're afraid for escalation.
Yes, we just ran out of time. But we will keep in touch, Maksym, on these matters that are going on in Ukraine and keep the public aware of what's going on. And until then, take good care of yourself. And to those who are tuning in, I want to say have a nice day.